So again, variable cost, the detailed definition would be the cost that changes in proportion to changes of certain activities. So typically the one we're introducing today will be sales activities. What are the type of costs that would change based on the number of sales that we make to customers? For example, cost of goods sold. The more you make sales to customer, remember we always journal 2 entries on retail price, on cost of goods sold. So the cost of the inventory will be accumulating. Cost of the inventory that's sold out to customer, that account will be accumulating as sales entries goes on. Whenever we make sales, we accumulate cost of goods sold. And whenever we deliver products to customer, we accumulate delivery costs. So the more times we'll be shipping the goods, the more cost of delivery is accumulated. So these are the costs that are linked to a certain event. The more that event happens, the more the cost will increase. Or if the next season there are lesser sales, then we have lesser types of variable costs incurred or accumulated. Okay, so again, earlier ABC costing systems, we classify activities, find the drivers. That's the idea of understanding variable costs as well. So those drivers are the activities that are basically the factor that links to the accumulation of that type of cost. So the number of jobs being accumulated, the more setup cost incurred. So that's the idea of variable cost. But earlier we just focused on manufacturing cycle. Now don't forget that for selling and also marketing the product, we also have variable cost incurred. So variable cost, this term incorporates a portion of manufacturing cost, a portion of sales cost. We're not separating those two anymore. We're looking at it together and separated based on its stability. Okay, let's take a look at this table here. So what does this tell us? What is 15? The number 15 that you see in all 3 rows. Cost per, it's an equipment rental cost, and it will incur for each and every event that's held. So assuming this is an example taken from the textbook, that the textbook case basically is a company that does DJ services. So does DJ services for wedding, for different types of parties. Whenever there's customers request on these service, they need to rent a certain type of instrument or equipment for the event. So this $15 here is the cost of renting that certain type of equipment every time there's a customer's request that comes in. So meaning, if this is 3 months of information, we see January 15 events, February 20th, 20 events, and March 30 events. Obviously, the month that would incur most rental cost would be March, because there are more number of events that happens that is requested from customers. Okay, so this is a simple idea of variable cost, that the total equipment rental cost is accumulated based upon how many events that are requested from customers. So the more number of events we have to held, the more equipment costs would incur. Okay, now if we were to plot those 3 information here in this graph over here, x-axis is the number of events that happens, and the y-axis is the total cost accumulated. So we can plot them. You can see that it goes up and it has a certain slope in this graph. Does anybody know how to calculate the slope of a graph? What would be here and what would be here? Slope means how this graph is being changed, the rate of change, the rate of increase. X over Y. So we would be looking at the changes of X, which is the changes in the number of events, and then the changes of the total cost. So what does this mean? Meaning, what is the rate that will be charged per event? It's $15. And how do we get this? Let's say we don't see the table up front. We just look at this graph here. We can actually go backwards and realize what is the rental cost per event by looking, just simply selecting either 2 dots. So let's say we select these 2, those 2 dots, the first 2 ones. So the changes in number of events is 20 minus 15. What about the changes in the total cost? It will be 300 and 225, right? So the differences in the cost based on over the differences in the number of events that's held, basically, does this equal this? Does it not? This will be 5, right? And this part will be 75. No problem. Okay, so how you calculate the slope of the graph, if you don't see the table, you want to understand what is the increase rate. You just pick any 2 points, find the changes in the x-axis, and then use it to divide the changes in the y-axis, the total cost. So you can do the same thing for the other 2 dots. So if we take a look at the 20 and the 30 events, the changes again, x-axis changes, 30 events minus 20 events. What about the total cost? 30 events, we have the total cost incurred 450, right? And then minus the 300. So we will get the differences here, 10, and use it to divide 150 to get, again, the slope is $15. So what is the slope? The slope is the variable cost per unit. It could be, another example, machine maintenance cost based on how many hours the machine has been used. So you would be able to determine per hour of using the machine what is the cost of maintenance that incurred. Basically, this is the slope, the increase rate of the graph. Okay, so the idea of variable cost is, again, the more you use a certain equipment, the more cost is incurred. The more hours you use a certain machine, the more maintenance cost is incurred. Okay, the more pounds of the delivery products, then of course the more delivery costs will be incurred. Now, why do we start the graph over here? Why is this line linked to the 0? No event. Exactly. So the idea of variable cost is if there is 0 events requested for customer this season, let's say it's low season, then of course we don't need to rent the equipment. None of this cost will exist. So we start from 0.